Hello, everybody. Welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. And it is Tuesday, April 7, the year of our Lord and the year of our Unix 2020. And, of course, coming to you from WMNH 95.3 FM in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. But no, we are not live from WMNH. Today's show is pre-recorded, so no phone calls, please. I mean, you're free to call the board, but nobody will be answering because no one is here. So if you're just tuning in for the first time in a while, in case you don't know, we have a stay-at-home order here in New Hampshire. So all live programming at WMNH is temporarily suspended. So what you are hearing is pre-recorded. Every day I'm pre-recording the show and sending it in. And the wonderful Peter White makes sure that this airs between the hours of 4 and 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I got to throw in the Eastern Time for those of you listening online at WMNHradio.org. But I do miss doing the show live, and I look forward to getting back. Hopefully the stay-at-home order ends on May 4, as was originally discussed by the governor. I have a feeling it's going to end up getting extended, and many of you probably have that feeling as well, but we will hope for the best. Anyway, so welcome to the show, my friends. Again, we are not live. Today's show is pre-recorded, but I've got a great interview that I want to share with you. So I spoke with a gentleman named Eric Marks, a very talented musician from Methuen, or as I like to call it, southern New Hampshire. No, I'm kidding. Methuen's in Massachusetts, but it's right over the border. Anyway, a little geography humor for you. Eric and I had a wonderful conversation. Very, very talented gentleman. So we're going to do that. I'm going to share that with you. And then I'm going to play, well, actually, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to play his new single, a great track called Everything, to kind of set things up. And then I'll share the actual interview with you. And then we'll probably play even more of his music. He's got a lot of music. Very talented guy, but really looking forward to this. And, you know, we're going to be doing this a lot, by the way. I mean, you know, the show is mostly politics, but we do like to mix in some music. Politics and music, my two favorite things in the world to discuss. But, you know, we might be leaning a little heavy on the music for some of these shows because, obviously, the coronavirus, COVID-19, is completely dominating the news cycle these days. And I got to tell you, my friends, I cannot spend 2 hours a day talking about that. And it really has kind of sucked in everything. So we definitely got to hear some good music and talk about some good music with some great musical guests. Tomorrow, Scrimmy the Dirtbag is going to be on the show, another very talented musician whom I've interviewed many, many times over the years, and a wonderful person, very talented guy. I've known him since before they called him Scrimmy. But anyway, so he'll be with us tomorrow. And, last week we had Slicko on the show. We talked about all kinds of things with him. So, you know, we might be leaning a little heavier on the music just so we don't have to talk about COVID-19 for 2 hours a damn day because it's just too much. Anyway, without further ado, here it is. This is the brand new single from our brand new friend, Eric Marks. This is called Everything, and then I will share my interview with him to open up today's. It's still a Monday through Friday show, I think, unless I'm told otherwise. To open up today's Matt Connarton Unleashed.
It's nothing against you, but I gotta go. And this is coming out wrong, but I gotta know. Did you even love me? Was it reality or was it you taking control? I'm better off without you, even though I want you, yeah. Call me crazy, call me baby, call me anything you want. Call me back and I'll come back like once was never enough. your friends got me all wrong. Everything I do for you. Phone, but you never know, 'cause you're busy out on your own, taking the first one home that you barely know. Don't you ever think of me and when we were 17, baby? Can I get your loving if I ever stop running? Call me crazy, call me baby, call me anything you want. Call me back and I'll come back like once was never enough. Baby, you and all your friends got me all wrong. Yeah, you got me all wrong. Everything I do for you. I do it all for you. Call me crazy, call me baby, call me anything you want. Call me back and I'll come back like once was never enough. Baby, you and all your friends got me all wrong. You got me all wrong. Everything I do for you.
All right, everyone. And now joining us via phone, because that's how we're doing everything nowadays. We have Eric Marks on the line with us. Eric, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Doing well, doing well. Obviously, we're going to talk about the music, but the first thing I do need to ask you, and this is how so many interactions begin nowadays, how are you holding up with everything that's going on?
I'm actually doing really, really well. My creativity has jumped 100-fold since all this began. I've been out of work now for going on almost 2 weeks.
Yeah?
And it's been 2 weeks of just hanging out in my little recording studio in my parents' basement and just trying to create something that sounds right and feels right for kind of what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's great, and you know, I feel like I'm noticing that too. A lot of creative people that I talk to, that's kind of how they're dealing with everything. Is just it's more time to create art, and I think that's the best way to deal with anything that's negative or can be negative. And you know, what we're going through right now, of course, is unprecedented in our lifetimes. To be able to take that, to be able to take the current situation and do something constructive with it and create, to use this time to create, I think whether it's what we're dealing with now or anything bad, anything negative that happens just in your life as an individual or collectively, like what we're experiencing now, to be able to use that and create something with it, I think is just a wonderful way to deal with it, and I think that's how a lot of people are dealing with it. Certainly, a lot of the musicians I talk to seem to be handling it that way. Do you notice that as well? I mean, obviously, I assume you're communicating with other creative people online and whatnot. I mean, is that kind of your impression that's how people are dealing with it?
Yeah, most definitely. I think now more than ever, people are having to find deeper, meaningful ways to connect with their fan bases.
Yeah.
And especially with the the hurt really and the healing that needs to happen from all this has really become a focal point for the music. And also just, a little bit of joy and a little bit of happiness is always something that people need, not only just to remind people about hope, but just to have a little bit of fun with it. I've seen a lot of people doing that online and, live streams and creating music just to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, it's funny. Yesterday on the show, Jenny and I were talking about this, how we're actually very fortunate. I mean, as much as challenging as the current situation is, and that's, putting it mildly, but we are fortunate that it happened at a time when, I don't know how old you are, but, I'm old enough to vividly remember when there was no internet. And, now we have all this technology. And for something like this to happen at a time when we have all this technology, as opposed to, 20 or 25 years ago, when we didn't have all of this, I think the timing of this is really fortuitous, especially, again, if you're a musician, or if you're a radio host, or if you're, if you're anything involving technology, you can still be productive, you can still be creative, and not just be, like I said, 25 years ago, everybody would kind of just be stuck at home wondering what to do, and
absolutely,
you wouldn't be as connected with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate in that way. And let me ask you this. So now you have your single, Everything. Is that, which is a great track. It's, very catchy, very melodic. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if he's an influence, for you or not, but it reminds me a little bit of Billy Joel. But it's, very, sort of accessible, to use a radio term.
Yeah.
And that, how new is that? Is that fairly recent?
That was the last single that came out, that one came out in February. The last single that came out was in March. I've been doing this thing, trying to put a new song out every month. So that one came out in February.
Okay, yeah. So that's still, so it's only April. So that's very new. And then you've also got an album called Hope, which obviously, you see that title and you think, well, that's appropriate for what we're going through now too. Now, so I assume Hope was already out, and then you kind of started fresh with, because everything is not on Hope, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then
go
ahead.
I really wanted to try and challenge myself to put out, new music as often as I could, so that I could sort of, give my fan base more music than just a standalone album, one time, and then a year later put out another album and just sort of do nothing for a year. But I challenged myself to try and put out a new song every month so that, people could still listen to new music, and so far so good.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's always interesting to me to talk to artists about what goes into those decisions, because, and again, I remember when I was growing up, it was very much, bands or solo artists, that there was a blueprint, that you would follow. They would release an album and then go on a tour, and then release another album and go on a tour. Maybe there was an EP. Every once in a while someone would release an EP. Not very often. You wouldn't see a lot of those. But today, again, because of the internet, you have all these options. You can put out an album. You can put out an EP. You could just do singles. So it's interesting. So you, after putting out that album, now that you've put out a single, do you intend to, I would guess because you're in this creative mode, do you intend to put out more singles in the coming months?
Yeah, of course. From now until, the end of 2020, I hope to put out a new single every month.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
And then, is there a plan to ultimately put those together into an album, or do you think you'll just keep releasing singles at this point?
Well, it's funny because the amount of freedom that I have from, just focusing on one song every month, I have more time to write new music. And so I think out of this, 2020 season and out of the amount of time that I have, I think after 2020, I should have enough to put some of the singles on an album and then some of the newer stuff that I'm writing and sort of do a mix and match of stuff that can go on an album in 2021.
Yeah, because I would imagine, obviously, if you're putting together an album, you probably want to have some sort of cohesion among the songs. Is there with Hope? And I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing yet, but is there like a particular theme with that and something that caused you to decide those 9 songs all go together in some form or fashion?
Yeah, Hope was a really special project because, like you said earlier about music coming out of sort of darkness and uncertain times and what have you, Hope came out of a 2019 that was just a brand new life for me. I was in a lot of new situations, a lot of uncertain months, and I was just writing music that I enjoyed listening to, honestly.
Yeah.
And as the songs came together, they almost seemed like chapters in a book. So I named them, what the names of the chapters of my life probably would have been.
Oh.
So you have the Riptide was the first song, and Anchor was the second song. So you sort of have these nautical themes and these different points in the journey of last year where I came to where I am now.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. The chapters concept, I like that a lot. I mean, was what you don't have to get into it, but I mean, was 2019, was that a challenging time for you?
It was a new time. It was a different sort of. I had a lot of people leave my life and a lot of people enter my life. So I had new, old friendships leave and new friendships emerge, and I had to deal with realities that I had never had to deal with before, sort of adult things. I'm 23, and I had been living with my parents for so long. I was living in a new place, and I just had to deal with these new realities that I never had to before. Sure.
And that, obviously, again, to take that experience and do something creative with it, which, not necessarily a negative experience. Obviously, it sounds like it was positive. I mean, new beginnings can be very positive, and they can be overwhelming and intimidating too. But what a wonderful way to deal with it, through creating an album. And I do love that song Riptide. That was, it kicks off the album. So that was actually, I'd listened to that even before I listened to the single, everything. And what a great track. It's got a real sort of energy to it that's very, very cool. And had you released anything else? Is there anything prior to Hope that is available, or was that the beginning of your recording career in a professional sense?
Yeah, that was really the beginning. It was the first thing that I really felt comfortable sharing with everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very proud of it, and I'm proud to continue the work. And I've sort of remastered some of the songs on that record as well, and I hope to release them sort of in a new light maybe in the coming months. Outstanding.
Yeah. Well, depending on how things go, you might have plenty of time,
Yeah, most definitely.
And are you intent on remaining a solo artist, or are there any plans to, to join a band or start a band, or maybe you have another project that I don't know about. I don't know, but what's your status there?
Yeah, if you listen to because you've listened to the songs on the record, you know that, I mean, everything is done with a full band.
Yeah.
And the magic of recording these days is I can play all those instruments and then put them all together. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that, but when I go to play them out live, it doesn't really work that way because I can't play all those instruments live. So
yeah.
I would absolutely love to have other musicians, join me. It's just really tough these days to find people that have a similar vision as you do and similar goals and similar music styles. And chemistry is so important with musicians. It's hard to find people that you just kind of mesh with,
Mm-hmm.
and they just know what you're thinking and they know where you're going. It's really, really hard to find musicians like that these days.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you, not currently, obviously, because no one is, but were you playing out at all, just doing like maybe a solo acoustic thing with any of this material or no?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I was doing was open mics around the area. I was doing 3 or 4 open mics in New Hampshire, a couple in Massachusetts. And that was really just the way that I was trying to get my music out there, trying to share it with as many people as I could. And through that, we were doing open mics in restaurants, coffee houses, bars, and stuff like that. So I got a couple of gigs that way. And unfortunately, with everything that's been happening, I had 3 or 4 get canceled just as things were really starting to ramp up for me.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, to get back to it. I still have one that's scheduled for May 15th, actually in Kenmore Square in Boston, but I hope that's still going to happen. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So it's probably not, but I mean, the hope is that, pun intended, the hope is that it'll still go on.
Yeah. We'll try to throw some positive energy at it. Yeah.
Thanks.
I sure hope so. I certainly want things to get back to normal, as we all do. Yeah, it's such a strange time that we're living through, but like I said, I mean, you're dealing with it through creating, and I think that that's the best. I mean, that's the best therapy anyone could have. Is you. By the way, so I was reading your bio on Spotify. So you started music pretty young, right? You were 10 years old when you first started learning to play and all of that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I wish I'd had that kind of discipline when I was a kid. I started much later. I didn't really get started until high school. And then, so what was the first instrument you learned how to play?
My parents got me an acoustic guitar for my 10th birthday, and I started taking lessons playing acoustic, and then 5th grade I started to sing, in the choir, and after that it just sort of, blossomed into, I learned to play the electric guitar, which is honestly a whole separate beast that I didn't even realize. I thought it was pretty much the same as acoustic, but it really is a totally different animal.
Yeah.
And then piano after that. And your voice is sort of like, it's an ever-evolving instrument. I have sort of had to relearn how to sing 3 or 4 times, even in the span of, 15 years that I've been singing.
Oh, now that's interesting. Now, what do you mean? Expand on that. You've had to relearn how to sing several times. For what reason?
So I guess really in 5th grade, my voice is obviously a lot different just because of, puberty and the changing of the body and that sort of thing. So after probably 8th grade, I had to, really relearn the mechanics of where my voice would sit.
Oh.
And then after that, I got really sick, I think, sophomore year of high school, and I lost my voice for about 2 weeks. So I wasn't able to practice singing. So I lost a lot of the range that I had, and I lost a lot of the high register that I had, my falsetto. I lost my falsetto, so I had to relearn how to do those things.
Interesting. Huh.
And it's tough really on the brain, because it's something that you have to just repetition practice over and over and over again until your brain and your lungs and your diaphragm and your vocal cords figure out how to do again.
Right.
So it's been very interesting. And then over the last year, as I've been recording this record, my voice has changed again, and it's sort of just learning how to breathe again, learning how to, sit on top of notes. A lot of these songs are very high in my range, and they weren't musical notes that I could sing a year ago or 2 years ago. So I've had to learn how to support those notes.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So so for you, it's been kind of an evolving thing. Now, after you recovered from being sick, how long did it take you to kind of get back to where you were prior to being sick? I mean, was that like a long process, or were you able to get back there pretty quickly vocally?
I remember it being a few months. I remember thinking I'm never going to be able to hit, the falsetto notes that I was, and it just wasn't pretty for a long time. And I was like, wow, I'm just not going to have that ability. But, honestly, just after playing with it and a couple of months, one day I was like, oh, I think I can do it again. And again, just after repetition, it just comes back.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's interesting. And when it came back, did you notice that you sounded different? I mean, obviously, so you regained your ability, to sing falsetto and everything, but was it different to your ears, or did you just kind of get back to the same place that you were prior to getting sick and sounded the same?
It was very different. And as I talk about it, I remember people, even now, they listen to, I have old recordings and stuff on my computer that I've shared with friends, and, just sort of as a fun thing. This is what I sounded like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, the change in mechanics, again, the support that happens and makes notes sound mature, and just the maturity of the spirit that sings those songs has changed drastically since I started the honest journey of really putting together music to share with people.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Now, and everything is everything that you've recorded, is that all you? Are there any other musicians, or do you do everything?
I do everything. On the song Hope on the record, there is another guitar player in there, but everything else has all been me, and I'm proud to say that, and I say that humbly. I really am glad that I was able to do all those things myself, and it really was just necessity breeds invention. I really just didn't have anybody really to reach out to and make music with, so I had to do it all myself.
Yeah. But out of that necessity, of course, you're able to, because not everyone's in that position where you're able to create something that really sounds close to or exactly like what you hear in your head. I mean, I've never, I'm a musician, but I've played in a lot of bands, and it was always a collaborative effort. And I know that, more often than not, if I would bring in an idea to a band situation for a song, if I had a melody or a riff or something, what we would end up with at the end of the process would, of course, somewhat resemble what I came in with, but it wouldn't be the same exactly, of course, and sometimes that was a good thing, and sometimes it was kind of like, oh, that's a little frustrating. That isn't exactly I envisioned. But when you can do what you do, where you're in full control, I mean, that must be incredibly satisfying and liberating to be able to do it and truly do it your way.
Yeah.
And everything is written by you. You haven't collaborated with anyone songwriting wise.
Yeah, everything is me.
Wow, good for you, man. That's incredible. And on the one song where you did bring in another guitar player, what led to that?
He and I had played together before at churches, and that's where I really got my start. I was playing at a church in Salem, New Hampshire for a long time, and I just met him through that whole circle. That's a really tight knit group of musicians. I mean,
yeah.
That's a family of musicians, really, is like church playing musicians. And so we actually wrote the chorus of that song together, and he ended up playing electric guitar on it. Again, that song too, Hope, has changed drastically from, I think we wrote that one maybe 2 years ago now, and it's changed even from its first inception to the version you hear on the record, and then even to how I play it today. It's a little bit different. So it's been a fun journey just for that song in and of itself.
Now, do you have anything? Do any of these songs go do you have anything that you wrote a long time ago, or is everything that's come out on the album is it all recent, all from what you springing out of what you went through in 2019?
Yeah, it's all really recent. It's all I wrote it all in 2019.
Okay.
And finished it at the end of 2019 and put it out right at the beginning of 2020.
So you probably have a lot of, because you started very young, you probably have a lot of material that you've written that you've never that you've never even recorded. I would imagine you've probably got a lot of songs.
Oh yeah. The interesting piece is I really have tried to write songs that I enjoy listening to, and I usually write to myself.
Yeah.
I write lyrics that I need to hear. I write melodies that I enjoy. And so some songs are just for me. I'll never put them out because they're just my own soul searching for answers. They're my own spirit expressing itself. And I'm not really trying to share that part with others. It's just for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
What I do share with people, I feel comfortable, and I feel like it's what other people need to hear and will enjoy hearing and will resonate with.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Now, do you have any kind of an ETA on when the next single is going to be out, or are you kind of keeping that open-ended a little bit?
April 26th. I'm trying
Ooh.
to keep myself to the 26th of every month. So Hope came out January 26th. Everything came out February 26th. A song called Leave with my friend Ashley Gerke. That one came out March 26th. And so April 26th will be a song called Rest of My Life.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Is it already done, or are you still working on it?
It's pretty much done. I actually did a couple of final tweaks just this morning and listened to it in my car. And, I mean, if I can toot my own horn for a second, it sounds really good. I'm happy with where it is.
Yeah.
But I'll probably work on it right up until I have to put it up online and get it processed.
Yeah. By the way, so I'm curious, do you always do that? Do you always see how it sounds in the car? Is that kind of, because I know that I'm someone who, and I haven't, it's been a long time since I've played in a band, but that's always kind of been my own personal metric is it's like, let's see how it sounds on the stereo in the car. If it sounds good while you're driving, then you know it's right.
I think that's definitely true. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of truth to that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people are listening to their music in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think if it sounds good there, it'll sound good pretty much everywhere. I try and listen to it. I put it on my phone so I can listen to it on my phone.
Yeah.
I put it in my headphones so I can listen to it through my headphones. And you can definitely hear different pieces and different frequencies when you listen to it in different places.
Oh, yeah.
So I enjoy doing it that way so that I can hear every little bit of the song and make it perfect that way.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So April 26th, now, so somebody else is on you with that track you said, Leave, that's going to be coming out?
Yeah, the one that came out just in March 26th. I wrote the song, and my friend Ashley, I told her one day, again, just as my voice has been changing, I was telling her one day, I don't know if it really sounds good, with my voice singing it. And she was joking around. She said, I could sing it. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And she was, confident enough to actually come in the studio. She's never recorded anything before. She's, been singing her whole life really just for fun. But we got in the studio and we did it. And I mean, it came out really, really great. She sounds amazing.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool. Is she doing all the lead vocal, or do you split that up?
She sings, the first verse, and she sings the first chorus alone.
Okay.
I jump in, I sing the second verse, and then we sing the rest of the song together. We have some really nice harmonies, and again, the song started with just my vocal when I wrote it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to have anybody else singing it, and the evolution of where the song is today, what you hear on the single, is totally different from the way I wrote it. But like you said earlier, it was a happy accident. It turned out way better than I could have expected.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome. So April 26th, we'll have to have you back on for an update when that comes out to remind people. And that's fantastic. Good for you. Do you find that giving yourself kind of that deadline, is that helpful to you? Because I know some musicians really like to have, it kind of forces them to get things done creatively, and some musicians really don't like that. Can't work with any kind of structure like that. I mean, do you find it's helpful?
I do. I find it helpful only because I've talked to a lot of other musicians who write their own music but have never really been comfortable putting it out for other people to listen to.
Yeah.
Because it's a terribly vulnerable place.
Right.
And it's a place where you have to be, honestly, either really stupid or really confident in how it sounds in order to put it out to really let people have their way with it. Honestly, you never know what can happen when you put your whole heart and soul and your music out there for people to listen to.
Yeah.
So having the deadline forces me to step out of my comfort zone every month and put it out, even though it might not be 1,000% perfect. I try and get it as perfect as I possibly can before I put it out, and then when it's out, it's out. And that's why I went back and remastered some of those songs on Hope, because when January 26th came around, it went out, and as perfect as I could possibly get it. And then when I sat back down with it, a month later, 2 months later, I thought, there were other things that I can do with this. and I sat back down to make it even more perfect. So yeah, the deadline helps really just throw you off the cliff into the great unknown and say, what's going to happen is going to happen.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Eric, this has been wonderful. Now, before we wrap up, please let our listeners know exactly where they should go online to find you, to keep up with what you're doing, to get access to your music, and anything else that you want them to be aware of. Because obviously, you're gonna be picking up some fans from today. So please let the audience know anything they need to know about where to find you online.
Yeah, the best place really to get all the updates on everything is really my Instagram, and that's at Eric Marks Music. And I post, new songs there every day. I really try and post something there. So that's really the best way. I also have a musician page on Facebook, which is Eric Marks. So that's EricMarcs. That's how you spell my name. And on Spotify, Apple Music. I'm the only Eric Marks on there, so it makes it kind of easy to find it. Yeah, again, it's really nice to have a name that sort of nobody else has.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so ERICMARCS.
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's funny. I have my last name. Jenny and I were talking about this last night. My last name is very rare. Connarton's a very rare last name, but there is another Matt Connarton here in New Hampshire, and he's my uncle. And
oh, there you go. Yeah.
And occasionally, it happens every year on his birthday. There will be people who are wishing him a happy birthday, thinking that it's me.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, well, the guy in the picture is clearly not me, but whatever.
Right.
Maybe they think I've just aged 20 years all of a sudden, because I guess he kind of looks like me, but just much older. But anyway, all right. Well, Eric, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, my friend. And once all this is over, and things do get back to normal, I would love to have you, come up to the station and join us live, and we can meet in person and do a sit down that way. But thank goodness we're able to do it this way. In the meantime, this has been great talking with you today.
Yeah, this has been really special for me. Thank you so much for doing this. And I do look forward to getting in there and meeting you in person and doing this again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it, everyone. That was my conversation with Eric Marks. And let's play another song of his, shall we? Well, we talked about it during the interview, so let's play this. This is from his album, the lead-off track from his album, Hope. Seems appropriate for the time. This is called Riptide. And then we'll be back with more Matt Connarton Unleashed.
When you said it was
Come on down to the Hop Knot at 1000 Elm Street, Manchester's premier craft beer and gourmet pretzel bar. Tell us more, Trudy.
We make our dough fresh every day. We make a variety of styles of pretzels and serve craft beer, cocktails, and a few bottles of wine. We do the traditional pretzel, and we have multiple flavors for that. We also do stuffed pretzels, pretzel sandwiches, free dessert pretzels, and pretzel knots.
The Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street. And I want to remind everyone, the Hop Knot is our wonderful sponsor of Matt Connarton Unleashed and, of course, of WMNH 95.3 FM. Please continue to support them. They are open Monday through Saturday from noon to 7 p.m. And just like most of the bars and restaurants that have remained open during this difficult time, during the stay-at-home order, they are still doing takeout, and they are offering delivery now. The Hop Knot does deliver, and we have shared out the menu on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Please continue to support them. Buy a gift card if you can. You know, it's a great way to support them or any of the local businesses that that you want to kind of help out, that you intend to continue to patronize when they're once they're back up and running full speed. But the Hop Knot, great food. And they have beer and wine as well, and you can get it all delivered, my friends. It is a beautiful thing. Please continue to support the Hop Knot.
This is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries.
Stranded in my bedroom, no one to love. Then there he is.
Let us give you an update as to where we are today.
My favorite guy. He's the earth and heaven to your giant, keep it hidden. Honey, we can see right through you. Andy, can't you see I'm in quarantine? A nervous wreck and skirt is hack of COVID-19. Nice coronavirus, you bring hope when I can't cope. I guess I'm saying I love you so. Oh, Andy. Oh, Andy, baby. Someday when COVID's not a thing, if we're on Earth for what it's worth, I hope they make you king. You run my state while I gain weight with grace and dignity. Oh, please be my dad. Oh, Andy.
And when you are united, there is nothing you can't do.
Andy, my darling, this global pandemic is scaring me real bad. But watching your daily press briefings sure does calm me down. The way you manage to lead and inform without terrifying the living out of me or straying from the facts, and still find time to nurture my delicate spirit with adorable slideshows and relatable anecdotes about meatballs. You're wise, level-headed, eloquent, and sexy at a time when the country needs it most. It sure is a refreshing change from that mother... Oh, gee, I won't get into specifics. You know I don't like to be political. I guess what I'm trying to say, Andrew, is that you're my number one Cuomo now. And whatever you decide to be once this whole thing blows over, whether it's governor of New York or president of the United States or ABC's Next Bachelor, I'm with you now, Andy, only you. Even as I continue to light a candle, get naked, and pray every night for the speedy recovery of your brother, my first love, Chris. With his tight, wet t-shirts and his sweaty Instagram workout videos and his big, muscular... You know, actually, I'm still really into Chris, too. Oh, Andy, you're so strong and rational. From now on, I identify as homosexual. You're kind and smart. You touch my heart. Your polo shirts are nice. So
because New York loves you.
Oh, Andy? I love you, Chris.
Ventilator, oh, won't you help me find some more? You see, the insults that Trump throws are all outdated. He's got it in for LA, only helps guys named Billy Ray. Those guys with their red hats thought he'd make it all greater. Doesn't he always say, we'll see what happens?
See what happens?
Well, let's remove him now and give it to him, 25th Amendment, so I can go to bed at night just to sleep. That Donald Trump, he blows, he should just go to hell. I only wish my words could just convince myself that he just isn't real. And life isn't the art of the deal. No, no, no.
Oh my, the nepotism poster boy. You seem uniquely unprepared. Your lack of knowledge makes me scared. Jared, 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 little in common we have shared. You have no soul that could be buried. Jared, Jared. Jared, you wouldn't be there if you'd faced a job interview. Qualifications for such a job you've none. Jared, it worries me that overhaul you just haven't a clue. And there'll be countless dying before you're done. Jared, since with Ivanka you got parried, you're about as rich as old King Herod. Jared, 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 you friends in countries that are arid, they're not so nice as if you cared. Jared, Jared, security clearances had to be fixed for you. Skeletons in your closet kept popping out. It seems your self-interest may play a role in the things that you do. And you've the personality of a trout.
on down to the Hop Knot at 1000 Elm Street, Manchester's premier craft beer and gourmet pretzel bar. Tell us more, Trudy.
We make our dough fresh every day. We make a variety of styles of pretzels and serve craft beer, cocktails, and a few bottles of wine. We do the traditional pretzel, and we have multiple flavors for that. We also do stuffed pretzels, pretzel sandwiches, free dessert pretzels, and pretzel knots.
The Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street. Welcome back, everybody. It is hour number 2, numero dos of Matt Connarton Unleashed on this Tuesday, April 7, 2020. We are not live and will not be live for the remainder of Governor Sununu's stay-at-home order here in New Hampshire. So today's show is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please. I mean, you can call, but you will not get an answer. You can still participate, though. You know, obviously, if you post anything, any questions or comments or thoughts or anything at all on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page, you know, obviously we're keeping a very close eye on that, and we'll address anything that is posted there during the week, of course. And also, too, you can always tweet me at Matt Connarton, or even send an email to matt@ipmnation.com. So, you know, you can keep in touch with the show. We just, we can't interact as much as we would normally like to because we are not live. But we will return live, of course, as soon as the stay-at-home order is over. And again, too, I want to remind everybody, of course, you heard the ad for the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street. They are open Monday through Saturday from noon to 7 p.m. Not only are they doing carry-out or take-out, whichever term. What's the difference between carry-out and take-out? I feel like it's the exact same thing, just different terms. Anyway, a distinction without a difference, my friends. But they are doing that, and now they are also doing deliveries. So please continue to support our wonderful sponsor, the Hop Knot. And I hope you enjoyed my interview with Eric Marks. Really enjoyed talking with him. I enjoyed talking with him. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And I look forward to, in the future, having him live in studio with us when things do get back to normal. And they will get back to normal, my friends. We'll come back to that in a moment. But also, tomorrow on the show, I will be joined once again via phone, because that is our current reality, by another great musician. Scrimmy the Dirtbag will be calling, and he's got a bunch of new music, so we'll talk about that. Also, too, we'll probably talk a little wrestling for you wrestling nerds out there, as our friend EZG Eric Gagnon likes to say. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. I don't do a very good impression of Eric, but anyway, apparently Scrimmy did not like the Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania with John Cena and Bray Wyatt. But we'll get into that, too, I'm sure. But anyway, I wanted to kind of circle back, though. You know, I made that comment about things getting back to normal, and that's going to kind of lead into to something I have ready to discuss that's connected to that. But obviously, as we're going through this terrible thing, and you know, I tend to be an optimist about these things. I mean, I know I'm very cynical in many ways about politics and discussions of that, but I do try to maintain some optimism about our current situation and whatnot in the country. And one of the things that people are kind of working through as we go through this, and our stay-at-home orders, or in some parts of the country they're doing shelter in place, which I guess is slightly more severe, more restrictive, but one of the things that as we're going through this that is a topic of discussion and for examination is will things return to how they were, or is this the new normal for the long term, or is it something in between? And I don't want to sound Pollyanna about it, but I really do feel this, and I don't think there's any reason to believe otherwise. And this is the optimistic point of view, but my personal belief is that absolutely things will get back to normal. And I bring this up as just kind of a counter to, and it's not that I feel like out in the world or on social media, it's not that I have this perception that, everyone thinks that life as we knew it is over and now we have this new normal that we're all just going to have to get used to, and the days of going out to a restaurant or going out to a concert or to a movie or this or that's just over. I don't think most people think that, but clearly some people do. Some people really do seem to think that, and call me overly optimistic, call me Pollyanna, whatever you want, but I just don't see any reason to think that. I truly do believe, and this isn't just me trying to put a nice face on it or trying to throw some positive energy at it. You might hear me speak that way sometimes, but I truly believe everything will get back to normal. Life as we knew it is not over. This is absolutely temporary. And yeah, we will return to the times of going to concerts and restaurants being busy and everything's going to get back to normal. I truly believe that. And part of why I do believe that is I don't see any evidence to the contrary. To me, everything suggests that our current state of affairs is only temporary. It is a moment in time. I find myself kind of putting a twist on a cliche lately. I've been saying, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We just aren't sure how long the tunnel is. There's different factors to consider. We can't just put everything back together, try to put it back together exactly the way it was too soon, because then we run the risk of backsliding and just ending up having to go through all of this all over again, right? If at a certain point, like say May 4, which is when the New Hampshire stay-at-home order is supposed to end, which I suspect will be extended beyond. It is hard for me to believe, and maybe there's a little bit of pessimism in this regard, but it is a little bit hard for me to believe that, just a little under a month from now, we'll be ready to just reopen the schools and go back to business as usual. I don't think it's going to be that soon. And I do believe that in New Hampshire and elsewhere, the school year is over. And, and I say that with, condolences and empathy for, any seniors who were looking forward to graduating and receiving that diploma and whatnot. I assume you still will if you're doing your online classes, but there just won't be the big send off, the big ceremony. So, but we do have to be careful not to try to put everything back the way it was too soon. And there are still many X factors here. There is so much We don't know yet about this virus. We don't know. Will the warm summer months really kind of knock it down? Like it does with, cold and flu season is in the winter. And there's a reason for that. Because that's when cold and flu viruses can flourish, is in the cold, dry air. And not so much in the hot, humid air. Is it possible that COVID-19 will behave the same way? It might not. We don't know yet. When will there be a vaccine? We don't know yet. Probably in a year, realistically. But we don't know. Could be sooner, could be later. Will there be some herd immunity that begins to take hold? We don't know. I mean, eventually, sure. But will some of that begin to take hold as we're, also mitigating the virus with all the social distancing that we're doing? There's so much we don't know about this virus. Will it be seasonal? Dr. Fauci has warned about that. It is very possible that, in fact, it does dissipate tremendously during the summer months on its own, without us doing anything for, beyond what we're already doing, right? But then it might do that, and we might think that we're in the clear. And then, as the leaves change in the fall and cold and flu season starts to move back in, so does the coronavirus. We don't know. However, even with all that we don't know, with all the things that we don't know yet, that we will learn, I don't see any reason or evidence to believe that life as we knew it is over. It will return to normal. We just don't know when, because of all these X factors. It might be in a couple of months. It might not be for a year and a half. I mean, to full normal. I don't mean, but when I say, it might not be for a year to a year and a half, I don't mean I think that it's going to be potentially another year to a year and a half of social distancing to the extent that we're doing it now. I don't mean that. But I'm talking about full-on normal. The normal of going to a restaurant and sitting down and being amongst people and eating, or the normal of going to a concert or a pro wrestling event, because we talk about that a lot on the show, or anything like that. That level of full normal as in what life was. That might take a little time. It might take a lot of time. A lot being a year to a year and a half. But I don't see any reason. And I haven't heard any of these experts either say that there's any reason that we should believe that this is the new normal. Because there are some people, I see them on social media. They're talking about, well, this is the new normal. This is the new reality. Life as we knew it is over, and we're never going to get back to that. And we can try to put a nice face on it as much as we want, but no, this is how things are now, and this is how they're always going to be. And I don't know where that idea comes from. Aside from, just people feeling very defeated and just kind of getting into that sort of pessimistic, depressive state where you just go, well, life was good and now it's very isolating and I miss the way it was. I just don't see any reason to think that. Now, So I do believe life will get back to normal. Maybe soon, maybe a year to a year and a half. I don't know, but it will. Now, I do want to be clear, though. As I say this, I don't want it to come off like I'm being critical of those who are feeling negative or defeated or pessimistic or anything. Anyone who feels that way has every right to feel that way. This is very, very difficult, what we're going through. And there are varying degrees of difficulty for different people. So I don't blame anybody for having those negative thoughts and feelings about it and having that negative attitude about it. Because to criticize or judge that in any way, even though I don't agree with that outlook, and I'm much more optimistic, but to judge or criticize that in any way, I think would be sort of insensitive to what those individuals might be going through. Because, I'm counting my blessings every day, and I'm very fortunate. I'm not in a position where I have some of the same worries that other people do. I do have a health concern, in that, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you kind of know my whole saga with the asthma and collapsing on the grassy knoll, as Jenny likes to call it, on the front lawn of Catholic Medical Center here in Manchester, and all that. And now I'm on Advair to manage the asthma and whatnot. So someone like me is technically in a high risk group. And of course I have someone in my household, obviously Jenny, and she's been very open about all that she deals with, who's immunocompromised. So there are concerns, obviously, of course, but I do not have the same level of stress in terms of worries about income. Like, I'm not someone who, for example, up until this happened, worked in a restaurant or worked in some sort of service industry where all of a sudden it's like, hey, guess what? We're closing, and, good luck to you. A lot of people have been displaced. Not everyone can just work from home. Some people are able to continue to go to work at a regular job without any interruption, but there's stress there too for a lot of people, because if you're, for example, if you're working in a grocery store, well, you're essential, right? You work in a grocery store. Grocery stores have to remain open, but particularly if you're a cashier, by the way, and you're handling money all the time, you're interacting with all these different people. This is a very high risk to your own health. So, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not dealing with a lot of what other people are dealing with. And I'm not, and also too, myself, it's no great sacrifice to me to not be able to go out and interact socially, because I really don't care. I'm an introvert, which sometimes surprises people when I tell them that about me, because it's like, really? But you do a talk show on the radio. How can you be an introvert? But something that's not unusual for introverts is we can often be very uncomfortable in social situations and interacting with people, either as individuals or in groups, in an interpersonal setting or situation, and yet we're very comfortable in any kind of performance situation. So for me, even though I'm an introvert, and I mean, like going to I don't go to parties, and I've never been a party guy, and I don't want to go to parties, and I don't want to make small talk with strangers. That to me would be that's hell to me, right? Like I don't, I'm not a religious person, and I don't believe in heaven and hell, particularly, but if there were a hell, I can tell you, and anyone else who's listening to this who is an introvert or has some of the characteristics of an introvert, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Hell would be, for all of eternity, you're stuck at a never-ending party having to make mindless small talk with drunken strangers. That and many people enjoy that. That's why they go to parties. They like socializing with people they don't really know and making mindless, vapid small talk about random crap with people who are drinking. To me, that is hell. And I want no part of it. Even when I was in high school, oh my God. So anyway, so as an introvert, to me, okay, I can't go to a bar, well, I don't care. So that's another way in which, like I said, I'm counting my blessings, because this current situation does not directly affect me and add stress to my life to the degree that it does to so many other people. So again, when I say, and I want to be clear about that, when I talk about how some people are being very pessimistic and talking about this like it's the new normal and it's never going to get better, I'm not criticizing those people. Obviously, this whole situation impacts the mental health of people, and believe me, I get that. I'm someone who struggles with depression and anxiety. And I've had some depressive moments since this began. I haven't fallen into one of my black holes. I call it falling into a black hole when I fall into a very deep state of depression, because I have to try to climb my way out of it. I haven't had that. I've had moments of feeling like a little down, but I've been keeping myself very, very busy. Which to me is the number one, because I don't take any medication for my depression. I never have. For me, the best thing that I can do is to be productive. If I'm being productive, that helps me kind of pull out of it, or helps me not fall deep into it. Because sometimes I have those moments, and I've had a few of them recently, where it's like I kind of feel like I'm getting depressed, but I'm able to, kind of pull the nose up on the plane a little bit before I go into the depths of despair. And the anxiety is more of a problem for me, because I also struggle with anxiety, and for me, the most anxious part of the day for me is in the morning when I first wake up. I just, because it's just this sense of, and it's not every morning, but there's often a morning where I just wake up with this sense of, oh my God, I was just asleep for however many hours. I rarely sleep a full 8, but I was just asleep for X number of hours. What did I miss? Something. It's almost like this sense, and I'm sure some of you who deal with anxiety can understand this, a sense of, while I was unconscious, something bad could have happened that I don't even know about yet, and I wasn't awake to deal with it or address it in some way, even if it's something I can do absolutely nothing about. It's that sense of angst that I have when I first wake up in the morning. And as you can imagine, and again, if you're someone who deals with anxiety, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's particularly difficult to manage that anxiety, the kind that I have it's at its worst in the morning and it's at its best late in the day. later in the day, I feel like I'm in much more control of the world around me. Whereas when I first wake up in the morning, it's that sense of I've been unconscious for several hours. The whole world could be collapsing around me, and I don't know it yet because I'm just waking up. But again, if you're someone who struggles with that and who understands that particular modality, then you understand how hard it is lately when, I have to wake up every morning knowing that there's bad news. Right? It's bad enough waking up in the morning worrying that bad news has developed over the period of time that I was unconscious that I'm about to find out about. That sucks. But it's even worse, or maybe it's better in some sense because I'm sort of prepared for it in some manner, I suppose. But it's even worse in a larger sense, waking up in the morning knowing that there's bad news. Knowing that I'm going to grab my phone, and maybe I shouldn't make it the first thing that I do, but knowing that I'm going to grab my phone and go to, say, CNN.com, and there's going to be bad news, about the coronavirus. There's going to be, the new death toll is whatever number it is, and here's the new numbers, and of course they keep going up, and of course it's the situation looks worse than yesterday, and yesterday it looked worse than the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. So that sucks, right? When my eyes pop open in the morning and it's like, I already know. It's like, all right, let's see how bad it is. The news this morning is going to be probably really bad or really, really bad or really, really, really bad. Yay! That sucks. That really that blows. Yeah. So anyway, so I try to put it off, right? I think that's part of why I'm nocturnal by nature. I like to stay up very, very late because I'm putting off waking up in the morning and seeing that how much the world sucks compared to yesterday. But again, I know how fortunate I am because for me, the impact on me personally has not been terrible. Honestly, for me, the worst thing that I've had to deal with is having to pre-record this show. Because I love being live at WMNH in that wonderful studio with all that wonderful technology and being able to take live calls and interact with all of you online or on the phone. And it's that real-time interaction and having people come in and be there in the studio with me and all of it, but I'm not complaining. This came up on the show the other day, and I'm not complaining about having to do the show from home and pre-recording it. I'm actually very grateful that we live in a time, and Jenny and I were talking about this on the show yesterday. We're very fortunate to live in a time in the year 2020 where we do have all this technology so that, even if you're at home and even if you're staying at home, which you should, unless you can't. Some people can't, if you're an essential worker or you just can't afford to stay home. But if you can, at least we live in a time where we have the internet. And so you can remain very connected to the world. 25 years ago, even 20 years ago, this would have been a much worse thing to go through. But because of all this technology, for example, I can record this radio show at home and email it to Peter, who then drops it into the scheduler so it airs in its usual time slot from 4 to 6 p.m. So to be able to have this technology, and it doesn't sound, and I'm aware of this, it doesn't sound as good as it would sound at WMNH with all that wonderful equipment in that great studio. But it sounds decent. You know, it's passable. You know, and we live in an era where, you know, you can do all kinds of home recording, whether it's a podcast, whether it's music that you're doing, you know. So we're very, very fortunate in that way. So the internet allows people to be creative and be connected in ways that we didn't always have. I mean, honestly, I don't know pre-internet. I don't know how the country would have even, or the world would have even dealt with a global pandemic. Because, you know, a lot of people wouldn't even know. You know, I mean, if you're not watching the like when I was a kid, you know, you had three networks, the three major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, and you had your nightly news. But if you didn't watch the nightly news or one of the morning shows or read the newspaper, you wouldn't even have up-to-the-minute information. I don't know how, a stay-at-home order, a lot of people would be walking around not even knowing there was a stay-at-home order. You know, unless somebody told them. If there's someone who's not, I mean, granted, there's millions of people who walk around not paying attention to the news in this era, but there's so much information around you because of the internet. You know, you can't be oblivious to everything. So we're very fortunate in that regard that this is happening, that of all times for this to happen, for it to happen in the year 2020, I'd much rather it happen in the year 2020 than, 30 years ago or 25 years ago or even 20 years ago. This is actually, and we should all count our blessings for this, this is actually a really good time for this to happen. I'm glad it's happening now. And think about this. Hopefully we get it out of the way and then we won't deal with this again in our lifetimes, because the pattern tends to be every 100 years or so. It is a century event. Spanish flu was, 1918? So a little over 100 years ago. And 100 years before that, there was something. And 100 years before that, if you go back. So if that pattern holds, we get through this and we don't have to deal with this again in our lifetimes. Hopefully, but also hopefully, we're better prepared going forward. So if this does happen again in our lifetimes or beyond to future generations, everyone will be far better prepared. I hope. I hope that this is a learning experience. But the point that I wanted to make is, I do believe absolutely that things will get back to normal. For in the macro sense. Now they're not going to get back to normal for everybody, unfortunately. And I don't want to seem insensitive to because I'm not insensitive to the fact that a lot of people are losing their businesses. A lot of restaurants are going to close and are not going to be able to reopen. And that's terrible. And I feel, anybody who's losing their business because of this, I feel terrible about that. A lot of people are and the economy is going to be rough for a while. No doubt about that. We're definitely going into recession. No question. I mean, that's unavoidable. So, but in the larger sense, things will get back to normal. Now, a little bit of good news, potentially coming out of New York. This is from thehill.com. Governor Cuomo of the curve in New York. So, and New York, of course, New York City has really become the epicenter of the corona. Here, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo suggested on Monday the state may have flattened the curve of the coronavirus outbreak, but cautioned that it is too soon to tell. The death rate related to COVID-19, the disease caused by the new coronavirus, has stayed flat for 2 days, he said, while the total number of new hospitalizations and intensive care unit admissions are down. He said during his daily press conference on Monday, quote, "Those are all good signs and again would suggest a possible flattening of the curve," unquote. To flatten the curve of an outbreak means to slow the rate of infections and prevent an influx of patients from overwhelming hospitals and the healthcare system, potentially leading to fewer deaths. Still, the state is in crisis. There are more than 130,000 confirmed cases in New York, including almost 5,000 dead. The state reported 599 of those deaths on Monday, a small drop from 630 on Saturday. Cuomo added that the state could be very near the apex or peak of the outbreak, but it would take a few more days to know for sure. He said of the data, quote, "We could still see an increase, so it is hopeful, but it is also inconclusive," unquote. Cuomo said it's not clear if the outbreak is plateauing, meaning the rates of infection will continue for a longer period of time rather than dropping after reaching a peak. If it is plateauing, quote, "We are plateauing at a very high level and there is tremendous stress on the healthcare system," unquote. Hospitals are already running at maximum capacity, he said. The state continues to look for more capacity to treat patients, and Cuomo said Monday he would ask President Trump to shift the use of a Navy hospital ship docked in New York Harbor to treat coronavirus patients. The USNS Comfort had originally been set as a facility for patients without the coronavirus, but Cuomo said there is not a large need to treat patients without COVID-19. Despite positive signs in the data, Cuomo said it is crucial people continue to follow social distancing measures. Remember, we don't want to backslide. That's the key there. That's not in the article. I ad-libbed that. He said the state would double the maximum fine for violating social distancing rules to $1,000. He said, quote, "It's not about your life. You don't have the right to risk somebody else's life," unquote. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said Monday that the rate of infections also appears to be slowing in his state. As of Monday, confirmed cases were increasing at a rate of 12% daily. On March 30th, the daily increase in cases was 24%. Okay, so that's half. Murphy said, quote, I had to stop and think about that. I'm not good at math, and that's very basic math. But Murphy said, quote, "This means that our efforts to flatten the curve are starting, and I say starting, to pay off, even with the lag time in getting testing results back from the labs," unquote. There are more. So that is some potentially good news. The flattening of the curve, good. Now, we should talk about, look how much time we have here. Yeah, we'll get into this, and then I am going to share some more music and talk about what's what's coming up on what we're going to do for tomorrow's show. But according to Reason.com, it says here, we've been hearing a lot about face masks, and we talked about that yesterday on the show too. Jenny was here. We were talking about that. Basically the CDC, and Trump's team there during the, when the coronavirus task force does the daily briefing, they've changed their minds on the face masks. So what were we told before? That if you're a healthy person, it might actually do you more harm than good to wear a face mask. But then there were some people saying, well, there just aren't enough to go around, so we don't want people who don't need them buying them up. According to Reason.com, it says here the CDC's revised face mask advice is based on information that was available months ago. It says Surgeon General Jerome Adams wants us to believe the CDC realized the danger posed. And by the way, so when we talk about asymptomatic, and I'm going to read a little bit of this to you, are infected with the virus who don't show any symptoms. And that's one of the, by the way, so we were talking earlier about the X factors, things we don't yet know, and there's no way to know, right? How many people, potentially millions, how many people are walking around who would, if they had the opportunity to be tested? I mean, that is getting better, right? Availability of testing kits, but little by little. How many people are walking around who are carrying the virus, who might be passing it to all these other people, but, through no fault of their own, they don't know that they have it because they have no symptoms. They're asymptomatic. It could be millions of people. For all we know, literally 50% of the country could have coronavirus, and most of them not know it. We don't know. So you could be asymptomatic. You could have it and not know it and be spreading it out in public, again, unknowingly, but you could be passing it to other people out in public, not meaning to. You just don't know that you have it because you have no symptoms. You're one of the lucky ones. You have no symptoms, but you're one of the unlucky ones in the sense that you have the virus. So it says here, the CDC revised its advice concerning face masks and COVID-19 last week, telling us to, quote, cover your mouth and nose with a cloth face cover when around others, unquote. The CDC had previously said that, quote, if you are not sick, you do not need to wear a face mask unless you are caring for someone who is sick and they are not able to wear a face mask, unquote. The official justification can transmit the COVID-19 virus even when they do not feel sick. Yet that is something we have known for. Jerome Adams was on Meet the Press on Sunday, and he said this, quote, here's what's changed. We now know that about 25%, in some studies even more, of COVID-19 is transmitted when you are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic, unquote. While that particular estimate, which CDC Director Robert Redfield began floating on March 31, is relatively new, it has been clear, at least since February, that people can carry the virus for days before they develop symptoms, and that some carriers never feel ill at all. And there's more here, but a strange window popped open on the page that I'm trying to read, everybody. Okay. So it says here, a new study, well, not a new study, China estimated that the mean incubation period for COVID-19 was 6.4 days. Another study published the same month based on, quote, publicly available event date data from the ongoing epidemic, unquote, put the incubation period at 2 to 14 days, which means about 5 days. Based on those findings, the researchers recommended that, quote, the length of quarantine should be at least 14 days, unquote. So that's where they got that, by the way, because that's what you constantly hear, 2 weeks, 14 days, right? A March 10 study based on 181 cases essentially confirmed those results, estimating a mean incubation period of 5 days and finding that, quote, 97.5% of those who develop symptoms do so within 11 to the New England Journal of Medicine, based on several cases in Germany, warned that, quote, asymptomatic persons are potentially sources of COVID-19 infection, unquote. A February 13 letter to the International Journal of Infectious Diseases, estimated that 31% of people infected by the COVID-19 virus do not have symptoms. A research letter published in the Journal of American Medical Association on February 21 described an asymptomatic carrier from Wuhan who seemed to have infected 4 other people. A February 26 global biosecurity report noted that, quote, asymptomatic transmission has been documented and the viral load in symptomatic and asymptomatic people is not significantly different, unquote. So in other words, I as a layman, as a non-medical person, I take that to mean that whether you're symptomatic or asymptomatic, you're just as contagious either way. The only difference being if you're asymptomatic, you have no idea that you're walking around with this. It says here, a report from the World Health Organization published around the same time, nevertheless, depicted asymptomatic infection as rare. While asymptomatic infection has been reported, it said, the majority of the relatively rare cases who are asymptomatic on the date of identification and report went on to develop disease, unquote. When it comes to wearing face masks in public to protect others from infection, however, it does not really matter whether carriers are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic. The point is that people can transmit the virus without realizing they are carriers. A March 4 study of 24 asymptomatic COVID-19 patients in Nanjing, China, cough and fatigue. Quote, none of the 24 cases developed severe COVID-19 pneumonia or died, although 17 had CT scans consistent with the disease. The remaining 7, who were younger than the rest, quote, showed normal CT image and had no symptoms during hospitalization, unquote. A March 12 study of passengers and crew on the Diamond Princess cruise ship estimated that 18% were asymptomatic. Now, this goes on, and we won't go through the whole thing. There's a lot of numbers there, and numbers confuse me, and I'm terrible at math. But we don't know how many people are asymptomatic, right? You know, there's one study that estimates it at 18%. The truth is we don't know. But it could be a huge number, and that's why the face masks, it's like, you know, it's like Jenny says, if you're wearing a mask, it's not to protect you, it's to protect me from you, because you could be carrying it, right? So that's why, and I'm starting to see people wear masks when they do go out in public, and I've been doing it. But there you go. But it appears that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the WHO, the World Health Organization, it does appear that they knew this, right? But from what I've been able to glean, it does appear that basically they kind of knew that face masks, even if you have no symptoms and you feel fine, they kind of knew that face masks would be a good idea, but they didn't want to say it because they want to make sure that healthcare workers have enough masks. So they don't want everybody else going out and buying up all the masks, right? The problem I have with that is you shouldn't withhold information to try to manipulate public behavior. You should treat us like adults and just come out and tell us, hey, we're not sure about the mask thing, but if you are healthy, until we can make sure that there are enough masks to go around for healthcare workers, we'd prefer you not wear a mask. Let the healthcare workers have first crack at them, right? And then once 3M or whoever can make enough masks for everybody to have a mask, then everybody can have a mask. But be honest with us about it. See, this is the kind of thing that makes people distrust government, is when government intentionally misleads us to try to manipulate our behavior. So instead of just being honest with us from the beginning and saying, we think probably everybody should be wearing a mask, but we don't want you doing that yet because we need to make sure our healthcare workers have access to masks. Instead of just being honest with us, they try to tell us, well, no, you probably don't need one, until they figure there's enough masks to go around for healthcare workers to have an adequate supply, which I don't know if they even do now. But once they figure it's safe to tell us the truth, then they tell us the truth and say, oh, no, actually, you probably should wear one. Like, just be honest with us from the beginning, you know? That's how I feel about it. So we're going to start to wrap up today's Matt Connarton Unleashed. I have one more track I want to play from our great guest earlier, Eric Marks, and I really enjoyed talking with him, and I've become a big fan of his music. So we're going to play one more track from his album, Hope, another song that we talked about during the interview. It's called Anchor, and if we have time, we might even sneak in one more after that. Tomorrow on the show, I will be joined by phone by Scrimmy the Dirtbag, and he's got some great new music, too, that he just sent me a little while ago, and I really look forward to sharing that with you. Again, I would remind everybody, of course, the shows aren't live right now because live programming has been suspended at WMNH until the stay-at-home order is finally over, which hopefully will be on May 4. But you can still interact with the show on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Please follow me on Twitter at Matt Connarton. You can always email me, matt@ipmnation.com. You can even send a text message at any time, and I'll read it on the air when I'm recording the show. Send a text to 617-917-4476, the official text line for Matt Connarton Unleashed. So there are ways that you can reach out and get in touch. Everybody, please be careful out there. Please stay healthy. Stay home if you can. If you can't, by all means, wear a mask. They finally told us, yeah, go ahead, wear a mask. So please do that, and please, stay 6 feet away from everybody. You know what you're supposed to do. It sounds like, hopefully, there is progress in New York, the epicenter of this whole thing. So that is potentially great news if that does turn out to be true. They have warned us we're in for a rough week as we continue to move to the peak of this thing, which is expected to be sometime this month. But we will get through it, my friends, and things will get back to normal ultimately. So with that, we will conclude with this. This is from Eric Marks. This is called Anchor. This is from his album Hope, which I think we could all use a little bit of these days. And so I'll leave you with this, and I might sneak in one more thing at the end of the show. And please don't forget to support our wonderful sponsor, the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street. They are open for takeout, and they are now doing deliveries, and we love them, and we would love it if you would continue to support them. And tell them I sent you. That never hurts. All right, my friends, we're going to leave you with this Eric Mark tracks. And thank you for tuning in. And I will talk at y'all a little bit later.
called my name when I was a stranger, rescued me when I needed a savior. Love is my anthem and hope. Oh, oh, hope is my anchor. There's a darkness here. I need a light to hold me dear. It can feel my fear, but I can't let it draw me near. Oh, you called my name when I was a stranger. You rescued me when I needed a savior. Love is my anthem and hope. Whoa, whoa. You called my name when I was a stranger. You rescued me when I needed a savior. Love is my anthem and hope. Whoa, whoa. When fear is my home, I'll overcome with the song of my soul. When war rages on, we'll overcome with the song of our own. When fear is my home, I'll overcome with the song of my soul. When war rages on, we'll overcome
on down to the Hop Knot at 1000 Elm Street, Manchester's premier craft beer and gourmet pretzel bar. Tell us more, Trudy.
We make our dough fresh every day. We make a variety of styles of pretzels and serve craft beer, cocktails, and a few bottles of wine. We do the traditional pretzel, and we have multiple flavors for that. We also do stuffed pretzels, pretzel sandwiches, free dessert pretzels, and pretzel knots.
The Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street.